Welcome, welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I am Dina, and this is Discussions with Dina. I invite you to join in this discussion by subscribing and leaving your comment below. Send me a friend request on Facebook at Discussions with Dina and tweet with me on Twitter. The government shutdown seems to be over for now, but it should have been an eye-opener for many of us. It really showed us how much we are all a part of this matrix called America, whether it affects or it affected you directly or indirectly. It really should have served as an eye-opener, and it gives us an opportunity to look at what we can or should focus on. For in the case of this or any other similar event, if it should happen again in the near future. The shutdown affected so many people on so many different levels, and it is absolutely amazing to me to see that so many people who are often the voice of contentment, they briefly got a taste of what some people face every single day of their lives. What they had a chance to experience what many people experience. Sometimes you don't know the situation you're in until something happens that bring it to the forefront. But I want to know, did we actually learn something from this shutdown? Did you review your life and begin to ponder a plan for the what ifs in your life? This hardship was temporary, but it was an impairment. It was an impediment to your life. It caused chaos for many of us. And I think it is a good opportunity to learn and take advantage of what we can do to prepare for such an event in the future. Although nobody is looking forward to it, it's a good opportunity to prepare. It's an eye-opener, so maybe it'll inspire others to begin to prepare for such an event. It was a frank look at the need for all of us to think outside the box. And I personally was amazed just to see how many of us are actually living paycheck to paycheck. And that most of us are just one paycheck away from peril. CBS News did an interview, and it was an interview with a furloughed federal worker who was actually facing an urgent reality. In the interview, she stated that she had only $1.06 in her bank account, that she had just purchased a new home and couldn't make her first mortgage payment. And she was worried about that. She was very concerned. And she had resorted to getting groceries at the food shelter and selling things out of her own home just to survive. And she was so afraid that she would lose her home because she would miss that very first house payment. And it was a real eye-opener, or it should have been for many of us. There were nearly 800,000 federal workers, and then I understand that there were what we call subcontractors, that they're not going to get any money for the days that they could not work. So they won't be getting any money back as the federal workers will. The federal workers will receive their back pay, but these people don't. So it impacted them greatly, I'm sure. People who relied on the federal funds for their housing, their Social Security, their disability, even child assistance, as far as daycare and food, it was astounding. So it affects us and it's far reaching, and it affects us indirectly or directly. It still affected us. And I felt like the ones that make the decisions that caused the shutdown were not directly affected by them in any way. It didn't appear that way. They seemed to use the people that were affected to leverage their own agenda. And too many have no concern for poor and working poor, because most people are working poor whether you want to admit it or not. And they really had no concern because of their own personal wealth, or the fact that most of them are millionaires, to be honest, and they are paid, even in their positions currently, from our hard-earned dollars. So we pay for their lifestyles. And we should use this event as an opportunity to reevaluate our day-to-day lifestyles and re-examine what it is that we can do and should be doing individually and as a community to prevent the hardships like the ones that we have just faced. Usually when things get back to normal, we are quickly to forget the experience. But you should not forget it, because it could always happen, and if not that, it could be a natural disaster. So hopefully this can be encouragement for all of us to begin to develop a practice that can sustain us without the need for immediate assistance or intervention from the government or anyone else, because it's just something we need to do. Now that it seems it has passed, don't go back to sleep. I want to advise everyone to take this opportunity to write down on a piece of paper how you was impacted by this shutdown. What caused you the greatest harm as far as your situation? What direct impact it had on you or your family, and begin to develop some real solutions, so that if we should find ourselves, or you should find yourself in this situation again, at least we can have a little safety net. And no, many of us are not millionaires, but we can do great things with what we do have. And I want to offer just a few suggestions, some things that may be of assistance to you or someone you know, in case of any financial or natural catastrophe that you may experience in the future. And these are just a few. There are many, and I will definitely go further in depth in the future, inshallah. First, I recommend that you take a moment to write down all of your monthly expenses for you and your family members. I mean your necessities, not your wants, not your desires right now, just the basic things that you need to survive. And we know that human beings need food, water, and shelter. Those are the main three. So you need to write down your rent, the amount of your rent or mortgage, your monthly electrical costs, stuff like that. And once you have made this list, you need to multiply it by the number of months that you think you can survive until your situation changes, whether that's 3, 6, or 12 months. This is how much you will need to save or set aside. And you have to be consistent. You cannot touch the funds that you have decided to save in case of an emergency, because we can come up with a million reasons why we can use it. But when that moment comes and you are out of work, or you're out of the ability to have income coming in, you will be glad that you made this sacrifice. It has to be something that you have to be very, very clear that this money is not to be touched no matter what is going on in your life, because you will develop excuses. The second thing you have to do is develop a plan to consistently save something based on your pay period. That means you set aside some money. I don't care what amount it is. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have anything to set aside. Yes, you do. You do. Sometimes we have to honestly assess what we spend on stuff that we really don't need, that could have waited, that is only important to you for the moment. This is the sacrifice you have to make. Once you decide on an amount that is good for you, you cannot deviate for any reason until you reach that goal. You have to set a goal, and then you have to be about the business of carrying it into practice, what it is that you have set, so you can reach that goal. It's a beautiful accomplishment, and award yourself once you reached it, because you can convince yourself that you can catch up next time. I'll just use a little, I won't put any in this week, I'll put it in next week. And that is how you become undisciplined. So be consistent. Once you have decided the amount that you want to set aside, stay consistent with putting it away, and don't put it near the money that you're using for day-to-day bills. Make sure it's separate. And I don't necessarily say an account, but whatever works for you. And the third thing is, we need to prepare a survival kit for ourselves. That's every family. You need a real survival kit in case of disaster. And you have to keep in mind your family's specific needs. And you need to set aside bottled water, non-perishable food. And what I mean by that is like canned food, dry beans, things that can sit on the shelf and won't rot quickly. They don't need to be refrigerated. Flour, a food that can be eaten if there is no way to refrigerate it. That is very important. And you have to make certain that you check the dates regularly. Once you begin this habit, it will become so natural to you. You can set up a date every year to check whatever canned goods or items you have to see if it's expired, because you have to be consistent in this. That is just regular preparation. You just have to prepare. And in this survival kit, you need a source of heat, candles for lights, or there are all kind of new technology now that seems to provide light based on the sun, and those are good ones to have. The sun is the energy, so you soak up the sun all day, then at night it'll have light for your house. And you have to have an alternative cooking method or a contraption. Sometimes you can make them yourself. Sometimes it's necessary to use the grill, and if you're gonna have a grill, you need to have charcoal. I don't know about storing the gas because it can be dangerous under certain conditions, so that's option. You have to secure that if there is a disaster, because you don't want anything to explode. And I would advise you to have an alternate form of transportation, like a bike or something that can be used if there is no gas or electricity. Make sure you have matches, flashlights, batteries, a weather radio, and those are also the ones that you can hand crank. I bought two from Staples, as a matter of fact, and I've had them for years. They are very convenient. I can sit there, I can charge my phone or anything else, and you just turn the handle and it makes automatic. It's just manual electricity. I can sit and talk and turn the handle, and I can have light and radio and charge my phone. So those are very handy. And not only that, but I can sit it in the sun and it will soak up the energy so I can use it later. Technology is wonderful for that. Make sure you have blankets, first aid supplies, tissue, and again, if you're going to use an alternative form of cooking, charcoal is wonderful. We need these things. We need to be prepared. You need all of the things that you may not be able to acquire if there is a disaster that divides you from getting assistance right away. And we can all reflect on Katrina. There were things that prevented people from getting help right away, and they needed basic things that they couldn't get at that time. When we do our survival kit, it really should be, you should be able to last, you can do a month, at least a month, but it should be up to 6 months. But you have to make certain that it is stored in a place or in a container where pests or rodents cannot get to it. That's very important. And the last thing I want to advise us who are interested in trying to prepare for such events is to start a garden, or join with your family members or neighbors and any others that would like to start a community co-op. Maybe a community garden is necessary. This will definitely be an asset in any case of a famine, a catastrophe. It's a good way to have sustenance when you can't get the normal sustenance that you have. So I'd advise anyone, even if you don't have a huge amount of space, start small. Start by practicing growing food inside pots in your home. Perhaps you have a balcony, a windowsill, or anywhere that you feel could be conducive to growing a simple food product. That could be the difference between life and death in certain situations. And I want to let you know that these are just a few of the major points that I suggest we adhere to for survival, basic survival. And there is so much more that could be done. And we will continue this subject at another time, inshallah. So let me know what you think. Subscribe and leave me a comment. You can friend or follow me on Facebook at Discussions with Dina, and tweet with me at Dina Discussions. I want to thank you for listening, and I will see you next time on Discussions with Dina.